Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of the CXO Show. My name is Swapnil Kamat. I am the CEO of upGrad for Business. As all of you all know, this is the favorite time of my week where I get to interact with some of India's most successful professionals. And today, of course, we have one of those India's most successful professionals. We have Ashish with us. Ashish, how are you doing?
Doing very well. How are you doing, Swapnil?
Thank you very much for coming on this show. Where in the midst of Diwali, so for you to make the time during this festive period to actually interact with us, I'm very happy with that because I love interacting with people from the broad HR L&D community. There's always so much to learn from you all. So I'm very happy that you made the time during Diwali.
Same here, same here. Thank you so much for
and therefore I'm wearing this Nehru coat just to ensure that everybody knows that it's Diwali, right? So Ashish, we didn't get the time to talk about this offline, but I often start this show by saying the reason why we're doing this show is because I don't think there are enough forums or enough platforms that honor some of India's most successful professionals that play such a huge role in running one of the world's largest economies. And that's why I want to, through this show, throw light on some of India's most successful professionals that have contributed so much in big and small ways to taking their companies ahead and in turn, taking the country ahead in some way, right? So that's the objective of the show. And I'm hoping, like I told you, that some of the listeners here can take back something which is real, practical, implementable, small tip, that they could start using. And especially coming from somebody who has a close view on HR, learning and development, it always helps because, often the billionaire's view may not help, right? Because that may seem very unreal for a lot of people. But, often the successful professionals that have come out of nothing and made something out of their life, I think people are very willing to take their views and probably use them in their life in some way, right? So that's what we're trying to do through this. And it's been an honor interacting with, I think, close to 14-15 episodes that we've released now, and a whole bunch of you all being very nice and coming on this show. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. So before I get started, I'm going to do a quick reading, a quick introduction. So people know you a little better. So Ashish Musaddi, am I pronouncing your name right, Ashish?
Absolutely correct.
Yeah. So Ashish Musaddi, currently serving as the global head of culture transformation, talent management, and learning at Cipla, a leading pharmaceutical major that needs no introduction. A distinguished HR professional with experience spanning over 17 years, Ashish is at the forefront of shaping strategic HR initiatives that resonate with the core vision, values, and objectives of Cipla. His dynamic career path has seen him play pivotal roles in renowned organizations such as Novartis Consumer and more. In his current role, Ashish takes the helm in fostering a culture of innovation, agility, and diversity within Cipla. His responsibility extend beyond traditional HR functions to include overseeing global learning and development initiatives, ensuring that Cipla's workforce is equipped to excel in their roles and adapt to the dynamic business environment. Colleagues speak highly of Ashish's people management skills and his exceptional ability to attract and nurture talent for the organization. He's recognized for consistently emerging, motivating, and inspiring those around him, creating an environment of mutual respect and personal empowerment and enjoyment. His colleagues speak volumes about his leadership style and the positive impact he has had on both individuals and the organizations. Ashish, what a lovely introduction that my team is put forward for you. And of course, this has not come from you. This has come from...
Send it to me as well.
Right, I'll say. So the next time you want to get introduced, I think this lovely introduction that my team has put together will really help. But this is, of course, from, checking you at a lot of different sources, I guess, talking to a few people that know you, and they've put this introduction together that I quite like myself. That's why I'm excited to talk to you today.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I mean, this is really humbling.
Yeah, thank you. So Ashish, I think it always helps, and a lot of my questions are quite standard to all my guests, right? But I want to start with you taking us very briefly, right, in a succinct manner, about your journey from, possibly the last formal education that you got to this position that you're in right now. So a quick, succinct journey would help the listeners understand where you've come from and where you've landed and how possibly they can do the same in their careers.
I think the consistent theme across the work that I've been doing in the last 16, 17, 18 years is being able to roll up the sleeves and get my hand dirty. I think, and that's something really, it's close to my heart, and I would advise everybody to do the same, because if you don't put in the work, you don't get the rewards. It's as simple as that. So, I started my career in a manufacturing facility, right? Most HR people nowadays, and especially the D-school graduates that I meet nowadays, do not want to go to a manufacturing facility.
Yeah.
But that's where the real bang for the buck for HR lies. And that's what I would urge everybody to start their careers with. Because it's a humbling experience that really, brings you close to where the value is created for an organization.
Yeah.
Manufacturing, from manufacturing in AstraZeneca to sales HR, again, frontline, front-facing, very dynamic kind of. And for the major part of my experience, whether it was with AstraZeneca, MSD, setting up the whole organization in India, moving to Novartis Consumer, as you rightly said, this has been all sales HR roles, right? And then, after doing pan-India roles, I got into a region role, which is essentially with a company called LyondellBasell, which was the first time I did an Africa, Middle East, India, and Turkey leadership HR role, which essentially helped me understand nuances globally. What are the labor laws, the reforms, how does it work, and what are the nuances where you are dealing with people across vast cultural differences, and what is acceptable in our country may not be acceptable in any other country for that matter. So, those stereotypes, essentially, I got to learn, and how do you avoid those stereotypes? From there, Cipla, it's been for like 6 years, started with head of HR for the Europe and emerging markets business. And that was about 4 years, and now it's about close to 2 years in my current role. So, the theme essentially, do it yourself. If you can't do things yourself, nobody else can do it for you.
Yeah. So interesting, Ashish. You've opened a whole Pandora's box for me to comment, ask questions just about your start, right? But indulge me a little. I think the theme of hard work is a very, very important theme, right? And I think especially when you have industry leaders like Narayan Murthy, talk about, I don't know what it was, 70 hours or whatever the number of hours. I don't think it was that much about the amount of hours as much as saying that, hey, it's important to work hard, right? And I think that if people want to succeed and they don't put in the work required, then expecting professional success becomes very, very, very difficult, right? And I've been repeating this quote so often to my team that says, the route to smart work is through hard work. Right. First, you need to put in the hard work. Then you understand, you have some insights, you have more knowledge, you have some hacks, and then you can move towards smart work. Right. But initially, it's just very, very important for you to put hard work. And when I say even moving to smart work, I always maintain that professional success beyond a point comes from the mix of hard plus smart work, right? There's not one against the other, right? I think another point that you made, which was fantastic, was about do it yourself. I think that is a theme that is often lost. And something that I keep sharing, which I want your comment on is as well. I said, you can't learn badminton without playing badminton, right? Absolutely. You can't learn how to drive without, being on the wheel, right? And similarly, you can't learn a lot of things in business, in work, unless you actually roll up your sleeves and do it yourself, without thinking something is beneath you or, not worth your time. And that was literally the first thing that you said off the bat. So you clearly feel passionately about it.
Absolutely. I think that's the theme, and most of the time people differentiate between hard work and smart work. It's not. It's one and the same thing.
Yeah.
Because it's only when you are able to do things yourself is you are able to teach to others. Yeah. Otherwise it becomes very preachy, right? Yeah. Whether it is marking the attendance calendar or checking the canteen as to how clean it is, to being able to prepare a strategic document for your next meeting. I think the entire thing is a journey, and everything is connected. So you really don't know what is the impact of your strategy if you have not done the work.
Absolutely. And if you ask me, you shouldn't even, often the biggest things that people complain about within companies, and you'll agree with that, is the big difference between, a strategic thought and actual execution.
Exactly.
Right. And unless you've been there, done that on the execution front, for you to actually build any kind of plan, strategy, vision, move forward becomes very, very difficult. Right. And that's why, again, like you open the Pandora's box around saying that so many young HR people are not willing, or don't want to take a job, an HR job in a manufacturing plant, where that's where you're literally making the product that you're going to sell, right? And if I were to, Ashish, talk to any HR professional, I would very much recommend the career trajectory that you either took knowingly or unknowingly, but I would always recommend that, right? Do HR at the plant if you're part of a manufacturing setup, because that's going to teach you so much about stuff. Then do it at sales, because you make the product, then you need to sell the product, right? So do something in sales where you're handling that, because that's the other critical cog of an organization. And then, of course, probably move to a more overall HR role, a more regional HR role, explore different geographies, that could be within India, then India, outside of India. So the way you've drafted your career by default or by accident has been lovely.
No, it's definitely not by it's not planned. I mean, as life would have it, nothing is planned. You just put in the work day in and day out. I mean, and that's and then you wish that you end up in a right place. And I think I've been fortunate enough for that to happen to me. And for that, I mean, once that happens to you, you put in the work and then you get rewarded. So it's not the other way around. So it cannot be that you were given the opportunity, then you put in the work. You put in the work today, and the opportunity would come. And that's how I've looked at it.
Absolutely. A very, very nice thought based on what you said comes to my mind, which says, if you want to start moving mountains tomorrow, start by moving stones today, right? You can't be doing the big stuff without doing the small stuff. And I think your lovely career is a testament to that. This is a question that I ask guests later, but it's coming to my mind right now. So I will ask you that right now. For a young HR person just graduating out of college, or possibly in the first year of their career, first few years of their career, what advice or what suggestions would you have for them to have a great career in the HR field? If you had to talk about 2 or 3 pieces of advice or suggestions, what would they be?
First and the foremost, I mean, it's to understand the value chain of your business. See, majority of the people we are talking to, I mean, would be working for a for-profit organization. Most of the organization exists today, it's for the profits. And to understand that value chain, first where the value is being created, and then where the value is being realized. I think that is the most important thing. And most of the HR professional, I mean, I've heard when I interview people, they want to take HR because they do not like mathematics. I mean, come on, that's not how it's going to be. Because being good at numbers, being able to understand your business, the balance sheet, the profit and loss statement, I think that is the basic for any professional. And nowadays HR is not just about people; it's about understanding the business as a whole. How are you impacting profits? How are you impacting cost? How are you impacting efficiencies and all of that? So, understanding the value chains, that's the first thing, I would tell any young HR professional. The second is being curious, So, I mean, at a certain point of time, I've realized people start losing their curiosity. I mean, being curious, being able to do the work yourself, getting into things, trying to understand, getting deep into the issues, understanding cause and effect. I think that is the second most advice. And the third most advice is by my first mentor and my manager, who hired me off the campus and gave me, was being loyal to the profession. It's what, nowadays companies, you change companies like no one's business, right? And then companies change you like no one's business. So being loyal to your profession, understanding what your profession stands for, and then most of us land up in HR. Then staying in HR and sticking to it is a choice. And then being loyal to the profession. What do you stand for? What does the profession stand for?
What beautiful.
That is, I mean, those are the three things I would say.
Got it. I have some follow-up questions. When you said understanding the value chain, where it's created, where you realize, simplify that for our audience. What do you mean by that?
Essentially, understand what is the business or what is the game that you're playing. Right?
Okay.
So if you're selling products, understand what are these products? What are the top products which contribute, say, 80% to the revenue? Understand where the products are getting created. What is the process? So manufacturing, essentially, right? And then when you say where the value is realized, where the actual sale is happening, where your company is making money.
Correct.
Where the money exchanges hands. That's the important, or as you would call it, a point of sale or something like that. So that is an important. So these two dimensions of any business, I think people must experience that. Got it.
Which goes back to what we were discussing earlier on manufacturing and sales in some way. So you're the probably second or third or fourth guy, Ashish, that we've spoken to on the CXO show that have reached prominent positions like yours, have echoed the same thought, right? And I couldn't agree with it more. I find that the biggest problem often with young HR people, or the difference often between somebody that's a really good HR professional or HR leader and somebody who's not, has a true understanding of the business, right? If you don't genuinely understand, have a love for the business, understand the business, take the effort to do that, you're not going to be able to get to the higher positions and contribute in a big way to your company, right? To add to that, you made another point as well, which has been echoed on this particular show, which is HR earlier on was thought to be something which is more touchy-feely, right? In a way, not core to the business, right? If you take a view of 20 years back. But today, I think, fortunately, HR has become literally the heart of business in some way, right? So the entire prominence of HR as a function and L&D also as a role has gone up many-fold over the last 15, 20 years that I've been in work and business. And therefore, if you don't understand business on one side, and if you don't understand numbers, right, data, the importance of that in taking decisions, that's going to be a big problem. So anybody who's getting into HR, trying to run away from data, statistics, probability, maths, it's not going to work out anymore, right, in this data-centric world. So I think that's a really nice point that you made, right? I also want to, talk about the other point that you spoke about, which is loyal to the profession. That's something that I'm hearing for the first time. And I think that's such an important point, because more often than not, if you, given that you're in the pharmaceutical industries, a lot of doctors, right, are very loyal to their profession and take a lot of pride in their profession, right? The same thing when it comes to lawyers, right? They take a lot of pride, and they have a certain code of ethics, so to speak, right? If one lawyer, there's an attack on somebody there, more often than not, a large part of their community stands up for them. And similarly, you spoke about having a certain loyalty to your profession. That is a very, very nice point, right? Because I think, again, HR has a huge contribution to make if we have to, go from being a developing economy to a developed economy. So I really appreciate that point.
Yep. I mean, if I just have to elaborate on that point, and essentially it's, one is to be having the pride of what you're doing, right? The other is standing by the ethics of the profession, okay? And essentially when I see and my job primarily, first is to making an impact to the organization that I work for, right? That's the first thing. So if I'm doing something which is not creating an impact, it's not worth doing. I mean, it's just being busy for the sake of being busy. It's not good enough, right? Second is standing by, the people perspective, right? Being a voice of the people to the management. And then vice versa as well, that you are a voice from the company to the people, right? And having that empathy to be able to deliver what is supposed to be delivered in the right way, at the right time, for the right things, and standing by them. And many a times HR professional, I mean, what is most important is to have that courage. And at times you will deliver messages which are may not be what you were expecting, but then having the courage, staying true to your profession, doing the right thing. And that is the difference between a good HR professional and not so good. I mean, I don't want to, connect any of what I'm saying to the growth and professional success. But it's about creating a value-adding life for someone. And that's exactly what it is.
I think that's a lovely way of articulating it. I honestly think that the job of, and I'm not just saying that, I honestly think that over the next 10 years, the role of HR within companies is going to become even more critical, right? Where there's going to be a global, in a way, war for talent as you go from being a manufacturing economy to a services and knowledge economy in some way, right? The minute you become a knowledge economy, automatically it's all about the talent and how the competencies of the talent, right? And naturally, I think HR and L&D will take a more prominent space. And HR definitely, Ashish, has that delicate role of being, in a way, the spokesperson both for the management and the people in some way, right? And a very, very delicate dance you need to do between doing right by both these stakeholders to ensure that there's an overall win-win for the management, for the shareholders, for the people, for the customer that you have. Yeah, so I think that's quite a nice point. Ashish, what are the big changes? I spoke about my observation of the change in HR, but tell me, what have been your observations? How has HR as a function changed over the last, you can take 5 to 10 year span, or you can take, if you think there have been drastic changes in a pre and post COVID world, you can dissect it like that, right? But what are the big changes that you have observed having been in the industry for 17 years?
Yeah, so I think what I really see is like you have in business or in marketing, is you change basis the need of your consumers.
Yeah.
And I think HR has started adopting that view. The workforce is changing essentially.
Yeah.
If you see, you have more Gen Zs getting into the workforce. You have your baby boomers who are retiring from the workforce, and the needs, of all these, generations are shockingly different. And the way they think, the way they approach the work essentially is very, very different. And I think, and that demands a change in the way we do work in HR. The other thing is the businesses are becoming so efficiency driven that if you don't count, every penny that every buck that you make out of $1 invested, I think you will lose, the credibility as a HR function. So essentially, what has that led to is us becoming more data centric. Everything that we are doing needs to have an impact. It needs to prove that with data that what we are doing is the right thing to do. Secondly, it is able to, tailor make the processes, policies, or systems, whatever you think, depending upon the need of the consumer, right? And consumer being the employees per se. And the third is about creating experiences. Now people value experiences more than a process or a policy, right? So in terms of being able to really see what are if somebody joins as an organization, a newcomer, versus spending a time, say 15, 16 years in an organization, the way they would see an organization would be very different. And how we were able to chart out those different experiences has become very critical. And the fourth most important thing is compliance in today's scenario, because if you see, the governments and the government agencies across the world are getting very, very restrictive. They want to work with the organizations per se, and they count them as the most important element of development in their the country per se. So essentially, especially around data, the laws around cybersecurity, laws around GDPR, data privacy and stuff like that. That has become so stringent, and the fines are astonishing. If you see the figures, I can't remember the figures, but it's really huge. It would cost the entire company essentially. So essentially, how are you protecting people's data? Its privacy has become very, very important for everybody. And in HR departments particularly, store a lot of people sensitive information. How do you use it ethically? How do you use it in a way which really does not differentiate amongst people and value that diversity angle, bring in that inclusivity angle? I think those have become some of the things which HR departments 10 years back did not even care about. And those are things we are having to look at. So the skill sets in a HR professional now would be very, very different, from what we were looking for 10 years back.
Yeah. My God, that's you've touched upon, you've literally done an amazing summary, Ashish, of the big trends over the last. I'm just going to read out like the
Sure.
summary of what you said, because I think each point we could do a whole episode on it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I think the first thing that you spoke about is, the needs of your consumer, and by consumer you mean you're the people, right? Your internal customer have changed, and I'm going to circle back and ask you a few questions on that. You've given me the right vocabulary. The second point that you spoke about is organizations have become efficiency driven, and that is so true. And that has both a good and bad aspect to it. But I think every business leader today will ask, what's the ROI on this thing? What am I getting out of this thing? Because there's been a explosion of data. So much more data is coming to business leaders, and when they see data, they feel that every parameter needs to be in the positive ROI in some way. And in the real world, sometimes it may not work like that. You may not be able to see a immediate ROI on so many things, and yet they could be so important, right, to the company. But yeah, that's a big change that has happened, which HR people have to deal with. I think you spoke about the HR professionals world being more data centric, so again getting good at numbers. You spoke about compliance, right? I think that's an issue not many HR people talk about, but I know how big a problem, not problem, but challenge that is today, I guess, for HR people to handle, especially in roles like y'all, which probably have a multi-country dimension to it. Because some countries are a lot more stringent on certain compliance issues than the other, and just dealing with all these things, even in terms of where the data needs to be stored, has become such a big thing that can lead to so much of trouble. So that just the compliance today is such a technical and challenging issue. And of course, the last thing that you spoke about is, I think the employee experience has become very, very important, because at least in markets like India, which are growing economies, I think each and every person, rightly so, has a lot of options to choose from. And if you don't create the right experience for them, you're not going to be at the right place in terms of the talent that you have in the company, right? Ashish, lovely summary. And I must say, nobody on this show so far has done such a lovely summary when I've asked them this particular question. So well done. Right. So I want to go back to your first point of the needs of your different internal customers, right? You spoke about baby boomers, and just throw a little bit of light on what you're seeing, right, as different needs of different sets of people. Tell us a little more about that.
See, I mean, very briefly, right?
Yeah.
It's a subject in itself, and we can
Yeah.
keep talking about it. But very briefly, I'll give you a very, very small example. For example, if you talk about the latest generation which is entering the workforce, which is Gen Z, okay, the way they are looking at things, and we did an internal survey. I've been talking to a lot of people who have children who are ready for work even today. Around me, my friends and all of that. And the theme that really resonate among all of them is, I am going to work, because it provides me money, okay, and I'm able to fulfill the needs, whatever needs I have, which money could buy. That is how they would look at a job. But cut to our generation, the job was essentially a parameter of success. The whole definition has changed. If you have reached a certain position, a certain milestone in life, it is seen as you are a successful person. But in today's generation, people don't see that as success. For them, success would be spending more time with families, spending partying with friends, having the time to do their own hobbies, pursue their hobbies, interests, and passions, and then doing a job which provides for a little money which can keep them afloat. I think the whole definition of success has changed. Now, if we keep, going back to Gen Z as HR professionals saying, you need to succeed on the job, that does not appeal to them anymore.
Yeah. That's such an interesting dichotomy, actually, because just my observation has been, and of course, I don't mean to sound like a old man dissing on the young generation. I think neither of us want to do that. We're just looking at it more from the lens of observation. I think my observation largely has been that all the things that you said are right, but I think social media has also increased expectations and aspirations of people also. And that often leads to a frustration where they're like, hey, I want this holistic life. but I'm only going to do this much, yet I want this,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And that often leads to a lot of the gap between that expectation and the reality often leads to a lot of frustration amongst people, which I think, we as companies also need to throw light on that a little in terms of saying,
That's
yeah,
absolutely right, and we're
yeah,
dealing with this on a
yeah,
daily basis, right?
yeah,
I mean, you want the money,
yeah,
you want the position, you want the power without
yeah,
having to do actual work, and
yeah,
that's
yeah,
where I started. First
yeah,
you need to put in that work to be
yeah.
there.
Yeah. Any interesting shifts that you've seen post-COVID in specific over the last 2, 3 years?
I think COVID was a traumatic time for all of us, right?
Yeah,
And in some way or the other, everybody got impacted, right?
yeah.
But you know what it has led to, pretty much what I'm seeing is people's ability to focus has gone down
Mm,
rather than anything else. The ability to sit and concentrate on a certain something has drastically reduced. I think
mm,
I don't know why would have happened,
mm,
primarily because of the fatigue, because of this whole online work, because you need a certain connect which people
mm,
have lost essentially.
yeah.
And then I think a lot of things during COVID times got delayed. A lot of
Mm,
projects were put on back burner.
mm,
Things which were more developmental in nature, primarily
mm,
L&D, if you take an example. L&D was
mm,
left behind in the corner
yeah, yeah.
during COVID times. Now we're trying to open up. So people are really questioning, do you really need that anymore? Do you want to
Mm,
do that anymore?
mm,
Because COVID, we worked really fine. I mean, there was
yeah,
no problem. So,
yeah.
why do you need to come to work? I mean, that's a
Mm,
whole question that people are asking without even
mm,
realizing the impact of not coming to work.
yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah.
I'm not saying that, being 5 days at work, 8 hours, 9 hours, that is important. But the
Yeah,
point is, at least a few days, to be able to really connect well as an
yeah,
organization, to bond together, right? I
yeah,
think, and
yeah,
that was the essence of an organization pre-COVID,
yeah,
which we are losing at the moment. And
yeah,
of course, I mean, work from home and remote working and all of that has its own benefits.
yeah,
But then
yeah,
it comes with certain issues as well, which we must reflect on and find a solution.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I think those are the things I would say. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think, Ashish, um, the ability to focus is soon going to be a superpower,
I
right?
think so too. Yeah.
Honestly, I think anybody that just has the ability to focus, that's going to be enough for a person, irrespective of his education background, whatever, to really excel
Right.
at the workplace and just his life in general, right? So people should take that, and just one of I think often it's a muscle building thing, right? And the number one distraction to focus today is, you know what, it's our phones, right? I don't think anything else is led to it more than a smartphone, and for right reasons, right? Never before in the history of humanity has there been one tool that has done everything,
Right.
right? Never before, if you think about it, right? Your
Right.
smartphone is your TV, your smartphone is your torch, it's your alarm, it's your calendar, it's your email, it's your, I could go on and on and on, right? It's a gaming device, right? Never in our in humanity has any technology or device done that for us, right? And therefore it is naturally very, very addictive, right? In nature, but just a brilliant muscle to build is increasingly, just try to keep away from your phone as much as possible during your work hours, and you
Right.
will build that particular muscle, right? I was watching this interview, I don't know who it was, Ashish, that said that, what's happening more and more is every time people come across anything that is tough, they distract themselves by picking up their phone, right? And therefore, they can't really devote their energy to try to solve that tough problem mentally, or otherwise, because their go-to, the minute something becomes tough mentally, is to distract themselves with a phone. I thought it was so insightful, because I know I do that so much myself, right?
Mm.
And without realizing, and the minute I heard that thought, I'm like, that's interesting. I need to be very, very aware of this, and consciously improve my ability to focus and deal with tough problems more and more and more.
Right. I mean, more than that, what happens to me is essentially, you are doing something, you're preparing a presentation, you're preparing a document or something like that. You suddenly, want to do a Google search or a research on a
Yeah,
particular topic. You go to your
yeah,
phone, type that
yeah,
out, Suddenly there is a WhatsApp notification. You move to that notification. While you are replying, you get a LinkedIn invite. You move to LinkedIn. The focus is shifting every second. And what essentially it has done to us is our ability to stay on with one thing for a particular longer amount of time is really taken a toll on that.
And it's so dramatic. You never know when one reel becomes 10 reels and 10 becomes 100. And I don't know whether your experience is the same, right? But I often so I can imagine how it is for young people, because I often find that long format, even Netflix and stuff, can't hold your attention as well as a beautiful series of reels and shorts, right? It's so much more engaging and entertaining to do that, because it's serving you stuff literally which is tailor-made to you, right? I don't think a TV show is as tailor-made to you as that, right? So it's literally a big battle that people need to fight for focus, right, and against distraction, and that's going to be a superpower as you go ahead, right? I think on the work from home issue, I think it's a very complex issue, exactly like you mentioned, right? Because I think certain jobs can be definitely done work from home and work very well work from home. And that's also given so many opportunities to people, geographically spread. It's also given so many opportunities to people that may want to work part-time. Right. So many caregivers, right, can take care of their loved ones while doing their work, right? Really focuses on output versus time that you put in, which is exactly how it should be. But also, of course, comes with a whole host of disadvantages, right? As well. So just finding that balancing act, I think we're going to take some time till people know the pros, cons, organizations know the pros, cons as well, right? Ashish, I have lots of questions for you, right? My next one, of course, is what if a person, again, is coming out of college, right? And across any function, right? So I'm not saying he's doing an MBA or engineering, or it doesn't matter, right? Just across functions, and is entering the workforce, and you don't really know, what sector he's joining or which department within a company he's joining, right? However, you have to advise him or her on 3 skills that are going to be critical for them to succeed in their career like you have. What would those 2, 3, 4, whatever comes to your mind, skills be?
Yeah. So I mean, first let me just comment on your thing that I've succeeded in my career. I think I'm a work in progress.
All of us are. All of us are.
And mostly, I mean, for again, an advice to the young professional entering the workforce is remember that success is a work in progress. It does not, it's elusive. Every point of your life, success would mean a different thing. For somebody who's just starting, maybe a manager position is a success. Somebody who's been there, done that, expecting a baby, becoming a father or a mother is success. Seeing your children graduate, that's success. And maybe having enough money to be able to afford a successful retirement is success. So definition of success for everybody is different and looks different at every point of life. So that's my first thing. So essentially, my first advice to such people would be to have a longer term view of life. So what we do is we start defining 3-year, 5-year, 10-year goals, but life does not happen like that. Right? So it's important to have a longer term view for everything, not only your professional life, but your life in general, your health, your the skills that you want to acquire and stuff like that has to be having a longer term view. You don't want to, for example, there was a year when I thought I would acquire a new skill and I wanted to learn tennis, right? And that was a New Year resolution. Of course, I fulfilled it. But in a year, you are a novice in tennis. You're not successful at tennis, right? So you keep building on your skill. So, most young people, they pick up a skill in 3 months, now I'm master at it. It doesn't work like that, right? So having a long-term view, first is that. Second is being resilient. Nowadays, what is happening is most of us, we want instant success, right? If I put in 10 rupees in stock market today, tomorrow I want 20. it's not going to work like that, right? I mean, again, accumulating wealth is a long-term process. Now, so the second thing is being resilient, and which essentially means small setbacks are not going to detour you or derail you from the path that you've taken. And the third most important thing is able to prioritize, and when I say able to prioritize, I mean not get derailed by small things that disrupt, right? Because there are always distractors around. Like you said, one of the things is mobile phone, right? It's a distractor, right? Your ability to cut the distractions, being able to focus on one thing. There was a statement when I was growing up was you need to be able to multitask. Now we become so good at multitasking that we've forgotten how to focus.
Yeah.
So it's the pendulum has essentially swung the other way. So you have to bring back the focus. So these are the three things I would follow.
So your three pieces of advice: take a long-term view on stuff, which I think is very, very important. Number two, resilience, right? Know that small setbacks are going to happen. It's a part of life and your career. But just constantly be the person that doesn't give up in some way, right? Constantly be at it. And your third thing that you spoke about is your ability to prioritize in terms of what you do. I think they're all good advice. Ashish, would you say that you're good at maintaining a work-life balance? And even I don't know whether your opinion is that, but what would your family say?
No, I would say it's an elusive concept. There is nothing called work-life balance.
Tell me a little more about that. What do you mean?
So according to me, if you are enjoying what you're doing, right? I mean, you don't care about your work-life balance, really.
Correct.
And that is what I've experienced with my family. So when so the ability to be there 100% in the present with the people you are, I think that will demonstrate that would essentially make you fulfilled about your work-life balance. So when I'm with my family, I'm cut off from work completely. And when I'm at work, I am 24. I'm totally dedicated to my work. It's not that you're not going to answer their calls, but the point is, gone are the days when you can do a 9 to 5 job and say, 5 baje, I will switch off my computer, go home, and I'm not going to take a work call. It's not going to work like that. And it's not going to be other way also. When you are in office, I'm not going to answer a family call. No, it cannot happen like that. So I think the days for work-life balance, that concept, according to me, should not exist anymore. We live a 24/7 life, which essentially means for the people who need you at the moment, you need to be there.
Correct. I think that's while you're saying that the concept should be not there, you're also in a way teaching us how to do it well, right? I think you're also doing that, because I think both the points that you're making are a very interesting. There's a very nice quote that says, "Wherever you are, be all there." Right. And I think that ability to say, wherever I am, I'm going to be all here. And being all there doesn't mean that you don't pick up the call. You get what I'm trying to say, right? You can be all there, and yet, there could be a call that is important, and yet you could be all there after that particular call, right? Because I think with the way the more we move into a knowledge economy, right? Of course, your company has a product and you need to manufacture it. But even if you're manufacturing a product today, you're part of the knowledge economy, right? And in that, it's impossible to work like in a way, a daily wage worker in some way, where you say, hey, I'm only going to work 9 to 5, I move out and then it's done. It's impossible to do that in the knowledge economy. Yet, I think it's important what you suggested, right? Wherever you are, be all there, right? And if you do that, it's a good way of striking the right work-life balance in some way, right? And I think work-life balance, Ashish, is a different term for how do you balance your professional life with your personal life. I think that's another way of putting across the same question.
I think there is no distinction in today's world. It's life. Work is also part of life, and there is. It's not that while you're working, you're not living, you are living. And if your work is not fulfilling, it's drab, you don't enjoy it.
Correct.
Imagine the majority of your day is wasted. So it's important that you enjoy your work. And that's also equally a part of life. You can't distinguish the two, because there are feelings and emotions involved in work. It's not that you are a robot or a AI.
Correct.
So you can't distinguish the two. If your work is killing, and you're not enjoying it, you will not enjoy your family time.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. How does one find fulfilling work, Ashish? Tell us. You're leading us to more and more interesting questions, but and philosophical questions actually, right? But how does one find fulfilling work? Tell us a little about that.
To me, I mean, it's not an advice. I'm not in any position to advise anybody, but it's the thing that has worked for me is essentially, I find joy in what I'm doing today. Okay, it's as simple as that. Even if I'm preparing an Excel sheet, I will do it to the best of my abilities, and try in the process, try to learn something. Right? If you find an opportunity to learn something new in everything that you're doing, I think you will find joy. I mean, again, it's not, your manager cannot create it, your organization cannot create it for you. They can, it's just an infrastructure which is given to you. Right? Your manager is a part of that infrastructure. Your organization is an infrastructure. The tools that you've been provided, which is your laptop or a computer or whatever you're working on, these are all resources and ecosystem which has been created around you. Finding joy and purpose in what you're doing. I mean, many a time people say my job is not important, right? But even in a small company, if you're working on a plant, if you're producing a product, and even if the job is to pick the product and put it in the box, I think it is a very, very important job that you're doing, and it has to come from within. Nobody can tell you your job is important. I mean, it doesn't help till the time it does not come from within that what you're doing is serving a larger purpose. Okay. I mean, it will never help if I go and tell you that you're doing a good job or you're doing something which is very important. If it is not coming from within, it's not going to help. So you start telling yourself every day that what I'm doing is important, what I'm doing is impactful, and it is helping my organization in a certain way. That's all. You don't have to put numbers. You don't have to put, profitability to it, figures, ROI to it, but just believe that what you're doing is adding to something bigger. That's all.
Got it. Yeah. So for you, I guess the secret of finding fulfilling work in a way is find joy in anything that you're doing. And again, secret to how to find joy in anything that you're doing, I think while you're doing any task, try to learn something right from that thing. So sometimes the learning, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm just adding on to what you're saying, sometimes the learning when you spoke about the Excel sheet could be to find a new tool to do it faster.
Absolutely.
Right? Or there could be a tool where you can present that data in a better way, right? Trying to learn about that, right? I think that's a very insightful point, right? The way to make work fulfilling is to find joy in it, and the way to find joy in something is to try to learn something from it when you're doing it. Sure, Ashish, you must be having some frustrating days, right? Tell us more about those frustrating days, and how do you deal with a bad day at work? What's your go-to?
Yeah, so I mean, of course, I mean it's life. Not all days are going to be good. There are bad days, and more often not, there are more of bad days. Really, essentially, what is frustrating to me is essentially most of the people who are working in corporate, right, especially for profit corporates, I mean, you are essentially wearing a facade, right? There is something that you're trying to do. People come with their own agendas. Everybody is driving an agenda, and rightfully so. Everybody has their own self-interest in whatever they're doing. However, when the self-interest is more than the organization's interest, that's frustrating to me. Right? I mean, everybody, at the end of the day, we are all working for a particular cause, right? And if your self-interest in a certain something is more important than that cause, then it becomes frustrating to me. And, so much so that people can see through you. People must understand this. Everybody is smart. Everybody is smart, and people can see through what you're trying to achieve. And that's something which is frustrating. And the ability and the way to deal with it is to, get back home, spend time with family. If you can spend time with family, if you can't, play a sport. I think that's the best thing you can do, is do to yourself. So I tell everybody, whoever I meet, play a sport. A competitive sport is something which is going to refresh you and bring you back to, to face that again tomorrow. So be ready for it. It's part of the game that we play, so it's okay.
I think competitive sports is a is the great leveler in some way, right?
Absolutely.
I don't know. I was reading this or listening to this that said that even if you're from a well-to-do family, please all the more ensure that your children are involved in competitive sport, because there's nothing better to teach them victory and loss like competitive sports, right? And if you don't get used to facing rejection, facing loss, right, that becomes a big problem. But
Very
competitive,
humbling, very humbling.
yeah, competitive sport, once you're there, nobody from the outside, it doesn't matter, you know, what your background is. It's only your skill at that point of time which is going to help you, right? So I think competitive sport has so many different advantages, both for adults and children and everyone. And I used to play squash. I don't do that as actively anymore, but you know, that used to be the one time where I was so in the moment, right? Because it's literally you against the ball, and in a way your competitor, right, that you're playing that. So there's no better thing to be in the moment than that. And let alone the if you know, if you're playing a sport that requires some amount of physical effort, that also helps you, you know, get into a much better mental space, because I think there's enough evidence to suggest now that, you know, any kind of physical activity also contributes in a big way to your mental well-being in some form. So I think that's a good suggestion. Dealing with frustrating days, you know, if you have your family that you live with or around, that's often a good go-to. If not, indulge in some kind of a sports, because that will often
Best is
help.
play sports
Yeah,
with them,
yeah,
not with your
yeah,
family.
yeah.
You can use that time.
Yeah. True. That's a very interesting thing. Ashish, we're almost out of time, and I've had such a nice time talking to you, right? It's been very interesting. You could be in some avatar of philosopher, I think, as you go ahead, because you look at stuff from quite a deep lens. Any parting final words of whatever you'd like to say on this show?
No, I mean, I think I enjoyed my conversation with you, Swapnil, as well. So, and thank you for having me on the show. And I hope that whatever we discussed, I mean, these are all my life learnings, right?
Yeah.
It's not really any sermon, or I'm not trying to be preachy here, but, you know, these are the practical things that I've learned over my, you know, a life, not really career person. So, and to me, career is always evolving. You don't know what you're going into next. But then all you can do is wish for that it's something nice, and then put the work in it. So continue to work, continue to be in the grind. You know, it's important to grind, and that's really matters. So if I want to leave people with, this is what I can. I mean, is do the work and hope for the best, because, you know, whatever you get served upon, it will be nice. Yeah. If you have the work, you've done it.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I think you started with that, and we're ending with that. I think, but both of us, I agree with that wholeheartedly, right? I think like putting in the work is an extremely important part of life, because that's the only way to learn, right? You learn largely by doing, irrespective of which profession you're in, right? A lot of people feel that, you know, lawyers, for example, any lawyer will tell you that what they learned during their 5 years of formal education is just literally the tip of the iceberg. It's literally the tip of the iceberg, and everything that they learn is on the job from that point onwards, right? And a lot of them start their internships so early into their formal education because they realize like that the main learning is by doing, right?
Absolutely.
And if you're not going to do, you're not going to learn. And if you're not going to learn, you're not going to have the insight required to really succeed as you go along, right? So I think the doing, learning, and in turn, I think doing well at your profession are also interconnected. That is beautiful. I think you've shared some really nice insight. I know we didn't touch upon your point of long-term thinking, but not many professionals actually talk about long-term thinking, right? And I think you've thrown enough light on that, something for me to take back as well as a big learning. So Ashish, thank you very much. This has been one of the best conversations I've had on this particular show. And I hope to meet you in person very soon. We haven't really met beyond the show. We got started immediately, but I hope to see you soon.
Absolutely, Swapnil. It's been a pleasure being here. Thank you so much for your time.
See you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.